Premier?
Here.
Good afternoon, all. I am Fiona Alexander-Smith, Director of Information and Communication for the Government of Montserrat, today serving as the chairperson for this event, Montserrat's first Diaspora Symposium, organized by the Montserrat Tourism Authority under the portfolio of the Office of the Premier. This event is part of a strategic approach to strengthening relations with Montserratians living overseas, who are crucial players in Montserrat's development efforts. You will hear more about this from our speakers during this brief ceremony and the presentations to follow. Please join me now in recognizing the presence of distinguished members here today. Premier of Montserrat, Honorable Joseph E. Farrell, Deputy Premier and Minister of the Ministry of Communications, Works, Labor and Energy, Dr. the Honorable Samuel Joseph, Permanent Secretaries, Heads of Departments, other specially invited guests, good afternoon and welcome. We have a very short opening ceremony because the focus today is on the symposium, the presentations by key speakers who have been identified. And so I'll move swiftly along to the prayer, and at this point, I will call on Pastor Ruth Allen to invoke God's presence through prayer.
Thank you and good afternoon. Eternal God and our Heavenly Father, how we praise you and thank you for this new day that you have brought us safely to this occasion, this first symposium of this kind. Father, the earth is yours and the people who dwell in it. So Lord God, as we prepare plans for advancement and development, we ask for your blessings, for prosperity, that you would be in every moment of this session, that you would guide, that we would be educated, and we would all be committed in building a better and a greater Montserrat. We thank you, bless everything that would happen, and may it bring glory to you and advance those of us here in Montserrat and in the diaspora. And for your many blessings, we thank you and we praise you, for we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Ruth Allen. We will have welcome remarks now by the Director of the Montserrat Tourism Authority, Mrs. Rosetta West Gerald.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, protocols having already been established, I would like to say a warm welcome to you who are here in person, as well as to those joining us online and perhaps via Radio Montserrat. I say a special welcome to the panelists, as well as those persons who will willingly share their experiences having invested in Montserrat, which is assisting us in the island's redevelopment. We know that there are many others who have also invested in the island, and for that, we say a hearty thank you as your contributions continue to rebuild the island. It is indeed a great honor to stand before you today as we commence this exciting and vital Diaspora Symposium. Our gathering here today signifies a powerful testament to the strength, resilience, and unity of our global community. This symposium is not just a meeting of minds, but a celebration of our shared heritage, diverse experiences, and the incredible contributions that Montserrat has received and continues to receive from all of you. We have an engaging program lined up, filled with insightful discussions, inspiring stories, and opportunities to forge new connections. Let us use this platform to share our knowledge, address common challenges, and explore innovative solutions that can drive progress here in Montserrat. Thank you for your presence and participation. Together, let's make this symposium a resounding success. Welcome again to the Montserrat Diaspora Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. West Gerald, for so ably establishing the focus of the Diaspora Symposium as we strengthen our connections with members of the Montserrat community living overseas. Now, the Diaspora Symposium has been championed and spoken about on several occasions by Montserrat's Premier, our Premier, Mr. Joseph E. Farrell. And so at this point, I'll call on the Honorable Premier of Montserrat to bring some remarks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Montserratians, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and friends of Montserrat, good afternoon or good evening, depending on whether you're here or in the United Kingdom or other time zones. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the Montserrat Diaspora Symposium, a pivotal event organized by the Montserrat Tourism Authority under the auspices of the Office of the Premier. The purpose of this gathering is multifaceted. This gathering during the Calabash Festival is significant as we commemorate the anniversary of the first eruption of Fitzroy Hills volcano in 1995 and give thanks for our blessings. This summer festival is representative by the Calabash, which is a symbol of strength, versatility, and resilience, and it underscores our dedication to engage with Montserratians globally and focus on fostering stronger connections. This symposium is a key element of our long-term diaspora strategy, aimed to forge stronger connections with Montserratians and friends of Montserrat around the world. It highlights our commitments to harnessing the talents and resources of Montserratians and friends of Montserrat worldwide for the sustainable development and prosperity of our island. Furthermore, it is important to us as it serves as an exceptional platform to showcase Montserrat as a leading destination for investment tourism, and cultural exchanges. Today, we aim to strengthen communication channels between Montserrat and the diaspora, leverage the skills and resources of our global community for economic growth and promote investment in our beloved island. At this time, I wish to acknowledge the significant contributions many of you living abroad have made and continue to make, as well as foster collaboration in national development initiatives. This hybrid event, which facilitates both in-person and virtual attendance, will allow for discussions on various critical topics to include healthcare, banking, and real estate. The National Hospital Project is one of the major components of any discussion surrounding healthcare, and which is of prime importance to persons on island and in the diaspora. Our objectives for these discussions to provide information to allow for a better understanding of the products and services currently available on island, as well as to discuss how we can attract and utilize investments to enhance these and other sectors of Montserrat economy. Additionally, it allows for continued dialogue in identifying available skills in the diaspora that can further assist us on island. We do have a shortage of skills here, and there are a number of vacancies within the public service. I would hope that some of you will want to return and work with us for a while. This I have been repeating as I travel overseas with Montserratians, asking you not to return, but to return for a brief period and share with us some of your time. This is absolutely critical for us because we have retired nurses, retired teachers overseas. Please consider coming home for a year or two and giving us back something, give back something to this country. During this symposium, we are honored to have representatives from various institutions who will serve as panelists, sharing the expertise and addressing your questions and concerns. In the same vein, your participation is vital as it contributes to the success of our events and further strengthens the ties between Montserrat and its diaspora. In closing, I extend my heartiest thanks to all participants, both near and far. Your involvement is crucial to the success of our efforts. Let us work together to build a brighter future for Montserrat, one that is enriched by the contributions of the global family. Thank you, and I look forward to a productive and inspiring symposium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. And Premier was reiterating the Government of Montserrat's commitment to harnessing skills and resources of Montserratians worldwide for the island's prosperity. Now, without any further delay, we're going straight into the symposium. We have presenters in various fields, in health, banking, and real estate. And this is a hybrid event, so it's an opportunity for persons online, especially those of you living overseas, to ask questions. Send your comments on the stream. Those will be taken into consideration, and those will be responded to during today's presentations. Our first presentation will be on health, and specifically an update on the hospital project, which we know Montserratians here and abroad are keen to hear about and regard this project as absolutely critical for the island's prosperity and development. And so it is ideal that we start here first, looking at the hospital project. Delivering this presentation is the hospital's project manager, Hannes de Bruin. Hannes has been the project manager for the new Montserrat Hospital since April 2022. He has substantial construction project management and health service experience. He has worked for Care Construction based in London, delivering on housing projects across the south of England. A career change to the National Health Service saw Hannes leading on transformation and innovation change across numerous adult and children's health departments. This ultimately led to project managing the build of hospitals and clinics over many years. During this time, Hannes was also seconded to the Falkland Islands for 2 years to design and build an elderly care facility, as well as extending the island's national hospital. Aligned to this, he established the first joint elderly care, health, and social services department. He has thoroughly enjoyed working with the Ministry of Health and Social Services, the Project or Program Management Office, PMO, and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, in leading on the design of the new national hospital. And he looks forward to commissioning a contract to undertake the hospital construction. Please welcome Hannes de Bruin, who is joining us virtually. Hannes, your mic is muted. Okay. It's unmuted. Okay, so Hannes, I'm going to ask you to start that presentation again because we missed some of what you said earlier. So please start now.
Okay, sure. So before I share the presentation with you, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me. I look forward to sharing the design with you. We're very proud of the design that has been put together with the Ministry of Health. There have been days, months, hours, weeks of involvement in the design of the hospital to make sure that it is fit for purpose for Montserrat. Okay, so I will share the presentation with you. Just a sec.
And we're waiting for Hannes to share his presentation so that he can speak us through a PowerPoint presentation of the new hospital project.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, yes we can.
Sorry, can you just confirm whether you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yes, everyone can see?
Okay, so okay, good. So what you're looking at is a physical model of the new hospital, and this model can be found in the Bank of Montserrat for anyone who visits there to have a look at. And as you can see, it's really state-of-the-art, and we believe that the people of Montserrat are very pleased with this. So this evening, I'm going to talk you through the description and the site plans, talk about the outside, and then talk a bit more about the inside, and then end off with the construction program. So just to give you the description and the characteristics, just in case you're worried, this is not all going to be text. I'm not going to bore you to death, but I'm just going to give you an outline. So it is 57,000 square feet, the hospital, and that's across 3 floors. That's primarily 2 floors throughout, and then one side of the hospital has an additional floor below because of the angle of the lamp. We have 25 beds and mixed wards, as well as individual rooms, and this can be flexed up to 32 if needed. Then we have dedicated mental health. We have a high care baby room. We have 2 operating theatres, one on the ground floor near to casualty. We have a full diagnostic suite, which includes CT scans and X-rays and mammography, etc. The building is fully accessible because it has 2 lifts, as well as level access from the ground and ramps on all sides of the building. You'll be pleased to hear that it is hurricane and earthquake resilient. It's been specific design like this. When the hospital is being completed, it will definitely be the most resilient building in Montserrat. It is air conditioned and mechanically ventilated with humidity reduction to make it as comfortable as possible for the occupants. We also have 70 car parking spaces, including wheelchair accessible spaces. So various people, various organizations and departments involved in the design process so far, and there are others as well, but the key ones have obviously been Government of Montserrat, Ministry of Health and Social Services, it is their building, the attendant staff, the hospital staff, every single department have been involved in this design. The Montserrat Association for Persons with Disability, Public Works Department, Physical Planning. Physical planning have been very helpful in getting this through planning. We're just finalizing the last details of that. Montserrat Emergency Services, Community Engagement, and then the FCDO and UK HSA and NHS England. But there are others as well. So it has been very comprehensive. So the existing site, I think you are all familiar with where the hospital is currently in Montserrat. So it is on the same site, and it is just above the airport. And so literally the new hospital, these buildings on the rear of the site are going to be demolished, and the new hospital will be built in place of that. Okay, so the existing site plan, don't worry, you don't have to understand all of this, but just to explain that it has, it originally was a school, and so you've therefore got all of these different buildings comprising the hospital, as well as this building here, which is Margaretson, which was an elderly care. The elderly care have temporarily been moved into town, and we are doing work on Margaretson, which will help support the building of the new hospital. So looking at this is what the new hospital is going to look like. As you can see, it's a sort of a triangular shape because of the lay of the land, the shape of the land. So we've made full use of that. So all of the buildings, which include the laundry, the kitchen, the laboratory, the pharmacy, maintenance, stores, physio, which currently are at the back of the site, will be demolished. Those services are being relocated into the Margaretson building. So that will be the new home until the new hospital has been built. And so, right, just gonna go back for a sec. During the build period, there will be a fence through the middle of the property like this. And so the contractor will have access to all of that. And the hospital will continue to operate in front. And towards the end of the construction program, eventually, once these buildings are in place, services will move into that, and then we'll be able to demolish the buildings in the front and create the parking and the landscaping. Okay, so some design principles and key aims of what we wanted to do. We wanted to have all the clinical services under one roof. So everything in the hospital. We wanted it to be inclusive and accessible for all. And so, as I mentioned, ramps and lifts, etc. And we have taken much consideration for people with disabilities. Adaptable spaces, because we know that things continually change. So we have actually designed the buildings so that as much as they have one purpose when the hospital is opened, the rooms and the spaces can be easily adapted according to the needs over the years. We followed NHS guidance. We also followed the PAHO Smart Hospital principles. So that was very helpful in terms of earthquake and hurricane resistance. The building, as I mentioned, is on 2 floors, plus a 3rd floor below one half of the hospital. We have theatres, laboratories, etc. I will go through that in more detail. And then also all the support services like stores and laundry, etc. But I will go through that in more detail. But in addition, we have quality green outdoor space with seating. We also have a cafe. We have a conference room to make the building as purposeful as possible, so that it can be used for various different services that wish to operate out of the hospital. So this is just showing you the model that's in the back. It's had the roof of the hospital taken off, and as you can see, this is the wards, this is the theatres on this side, and the admin space. Okay, so don't be concerned because there's lots on this page, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just showing you that here's the top floor, this is the ground floor, and this is the extra floor, which is lower because of the slope of the land towards the airport. And as you can see, we've got laboratory and theatre on the top floor on this side, the west and the admin, got the wards and the birthing suite on the east top floor, right? On the ground floor, we have sterilizing in the kitchen and the pharmacy in the front on the west. We have plan care, diagnostics, which is X-ray and CT scan, etc. Ambulance and casualty on the east towards Lookout. And then this lower floor on the west towards the airport, you have the mortuary, the laundry, and stores and maintenance. So talking a bit about the outside. So this is the front of the hospital. So literally, if you can imagine, if you were here, you would be standing in the middle of a hospital site. If you are familiar with the hospital site, you will recognize this cherry tree, which is in the middle of the hospital. And Montserrat people told us that they are very keen to keep this because they have fond memories of playing under it, and it will be a welcome contribution to the new hospital. So there you go. That's the front of the hospital. 2 front doors on this side here, and the ambulance entrance on that side. Conference room on this side, and the cafe next to it. Just another view of the front entrance. So this is in the front of the hospital on this side here. All the corridors are wide and they have seating and that close in the case of storms and hurricanes. This is the new conference center with the cafe next to it. This is from the other end of the corridor. This is what the pharmacy will be here. and there's lots of seating for people who are waiting, and there are separate windows for ordering your pharmacy goods and then receiving them. And as you can see, this is a quick close-up of the shutters that will close in the case of bad weather. You will notice also that there are, you know, hand rails throughout the hospital to help people feel safe. So this is in the middle of the hospital. You have a courtyard, and this is at the back of the conference room and the cafe area. So very appealing. Plus the garden area here, and patients would be welcome to come down through this area, but as well as visitors. You will see, just looking at this picture, that shutters have been included. These are now open, and so they are creating sun shields, but they are easily closed from inside for storms. So this is on the west side, the lookout side of the hospital, and as you can see, this shows the ambulance entrance, and that goes through to emergency, and there are two very big emergency bays on either side of this. Just to explain that there will be a roadway that goes all the way around the hospital for easy access. So this is looking at the hospital from the rear. So this is behind the hospital. And it's just showing you, as I pointed out, that there is full disability access to the hospital. So they have ramps going down. The wards are on this side of the building, and so you would be able to take people down in wheelchairs, but you could actually wheel them down in a hospital bed, a hospital trolley, to get them down out of the hospital in case of emergency. Sorry, I should have just, never mind, I can show you on this one. So this is looking at it at the hospital from the side where the airport is. So looking at it from the east, so you can see here easily the third floor. So the whole hospital has these two floors, but this side has an additional floor. And so you can see it's been designed so that it has this platform for lorries to come and park next to this, so that it's easy to offload whatever goods we need for the hospital, because the stores are just in this area here, so very easy access. But also, I should point out, whilst we look at this space, that this is the access to the mortuary. So access to the mortuary is not really visible. You will not be able to see it from any area in the hospital, which, you know, gives privacy, and that's what we aim to achieve. So this is the same side, looking at the front. So this is where the conference center is, in the cafe. This is where the pharmacy is. The admin offices are there. Down on this side, we have the ramp for easy offloading. We have the stores here, and we have the kitchen next to it. Sorry, not the kitchen, the laundry, I apologize. The laundry, because the washing is taken outside to be put into the sun. But I will show you more about the laundry in a minute. Okay, so talking a bit about the inside now. So things that, as we have gone through the design process, we have recognized that things needed to be adjusted in terms of our original expectations. And so these are the things that became apparent, that we needed to upgrade to fully air-conditioned and mechanically ventilated. Because the current hospital is primarily ventilated, and so we couldn't expect anything less for patients in the future. But besides everything else, it has definite health implications. So we'll also be retaining the existing ward building. So as much as there is demolition of most of the old hospital, the existing ward building plus the space that is used for the theatre and mortuary, that's all one building that will be retained in the future. And a decision will be made on what the purpose of that is going to be. So we have 4 dedicated isolation rooms which have a high quality of HEPA filter, so that it provides protection for any outbreaks, any diseases. We can put them into these rooms. We have an enlarged accident and emergency with dedicated waiting area. So that's, considering it's in the same building, it will have its own space, so that makes it easier for people who are coming for normal daycare as opposed to those that are coming for accident and emergency. We have an enlarged operating theatre. We've had to take into account this theatre is going to be the only one on the island going forward, and so we needed to make it as future-proof as possible. We have pipe medical gases, and I've listed most of them here, which is very modern thinking and very convenient for medical care. We're having a new water tank to ensure that we have a safety provision for a period of time, should there be hurricanes, etc. I think you might know that Montserrat at the moment purchases all its oxygen supplies from Antigua. So we have 100 cylinders, and if you think about the fact that someone who has COVID can be using up to 30 bottles, cylinders a day, we were in a precarious position. However, we have now purchased an oxygen generator plant, and we will be installing that. Also electrical generators, which will be positioned across the road at the DMCA. And there are 2 of those that are synchronized. So we absolutely have contingency going forward. So I'm not going to belabor these because you've already seen what the makeup of the hospital is, but this is really just to show you another view. So this was the lower ground where the laundry and the mortuary was in the stores. And then also just explaining that below the hospital, there are various different plant rooms for all the equipment that runs the hospital. So electrical, gas, etc. This then is the ground floor. And as you saw, we have the sterilizing, we have the kitchen, we have the pharmacy, conference room and a cafe. In the front, this is the main reception area. This is the ambulance entrance with your accident and emergency. And you have many rooms to support that. Down on this side, we have diagnostics, which includes the minor operations theatre. We have CT scanner, we have X-ray, we have mammography, plus we have a bedded bay to support people who have been treated in any of these areas during the day. Plus we have various different treatment rooms on this side for planned care. So that's things like leg ulcers, taking blood, etc. Okay, and then lastly, this is the first floor. So on this side we have the ward. So you can see there are four bedded bays. Two of them are fully enclosed, two of them are open. So the nurse's station is in this area, and they have line of sight into these two bays. So these two will be used for patients who need high care. And on these two, just either side of them, one will be used for children, and the other one for people who don't need high care. So the use of these rooms will be depending on what the need is in the hospital at any given time. So I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. So down this side here, I mentioned we have 4 isolation rooms with a higher ventilation and HEPA filters. We have overnight areas for staff to be who need to be on call. We have a high dependency children's room. We have an acute mental health room, and that's all behind the nurse's station. And then down this side here, we have more rooms that can be used for children or for maternity. And this is the birthing room, which has a birthing pool and all the other things that are required for birthing. But just to explain to you, when you look at these rooms, you know, they don't look massive, but each of these rooms take 4 beds and it's spacious. And each of these individual rooms are big enough for an ensuite and for the patient's bed, plus a couch that people can sleep on if they have someone accompanying them, like a child, etc. Okay, so on this side here, we have the laboratories, and as you can see, there is the separation. This is the part of the laboratory that we use for testing of things like infectious diseases, etc. And then this main laboratory has numerous different small laboratory rooms which are used for different things, like, for example, the blood bank. And then we have the operating theatre, which you can see is extensive. So it has endoscopy, and it has space for the entire team to be on hand. You have the admin space down here. And this is just the top floor. All of the equipment, like the air filters, air conditioning, etc., is on the top floor, above, the roof. So services that are provided within the hospital: accident and emergency diagnostics, so that's X-ray, CT scan, and mammography and ultrasound. The operating theatre and minor surgeries room, which includes endoscopy, general inpatients, medical services, maternity, outpatients, the laboratory, the pharmacy, dietary, mortuary, and all of these, we have a new patient electronic health record system for patients, so that we no longer have to use paper files. So that really indicates a massive change in the way that health services are being delivered. So this is inside the hospital. This is by front doors, and you have a large waiting room. To the right here, there's another waiting room for accident and emergency, and then you'd be called through to diagnostics or your planned care, and on that side for emergency care. Okay. So this is, we took a photo of the current ward, so just to show you that. And then this is going to be the new ward. So as you can see, this is the nurses station that I mentioned. It's in the middle of the hospital, and they have line of sight into 2 of the 4-bedded bays for higher care. And then behind this, you have the high care babies room and the mental health room as well. This then is one of the 4-bed bays, and as you can see, that it really is spacious, and everything that we could possibly think should be designed into the hospital to prepare for the future has been included, including, as I mentioned, pipe gases to the bed head of each of these beds. This is the maternity room. So as you can see, a large birthing couch. Behind this lady, this nurse, is the birthing pool. Behind this dad is the ensuite that supports that, and all of the equipment that is required inside a birthing suite. Once again, this is the current accident and emergency. Just to show you the comparison, this is going to be the new one, and there are 2 of these, one on the other side of the corridor, and this is where the ambulance will be coming and dropping off patients. So as you can see, it is fully equipped for emergencies. CT scanner. So I think you might know that the CT scanner is already at the hospital. It's in a interim container, and once the hospital has been built, it will be moved by the professionals into the hospital. So yes, this is the state-of-the-art CT scanner. This is just showing from the observation room where they monitor everything. This is the existing theatre, and as you can see, it's not a bad size. However, all of the equipment has to be stored inside it. So going forward, we have a large operating theatre, and there is a separate storage space for the equipment, so it doesn't have to be in the theatre. It has access to all of the support services around it. It will be fully digital, so it will have cameras on the roof, so that people being operated on, the image can go to an off-site monitoring person, and different specialists then can advise on what should happen during the procedure. So this is your existing laboratory. As you can see, unfortunately, it is quite busy. And so I want to just explain this piece of equipment, which takes up most of the room. If you look at it in the new design, there is that piece of equipment at the back. So you can see, just by comparison, that the new laboratory is extensive, and it has all of these different rooms that can be used for different procedures. So that is going to be something really positive. I'm also just pointing out the hurricane shutters. You can see this is up, and it is called creating a sun visor. But if it comes down, you will still be able to see through it, but it will provide protection. This is the existing admin area. And so this is this is the reception area of the new admin area. So this is reception, waiting, and then it's not shown on this, but it will then have all the offices going down this side. This is just an example of an office. Hopefully they will always keep it so clean and neat. Here we're looking at the existing laundry. It was a rainy day, unusually so for Montserrat when we took this photo. But as you can see, somewhat cramped again. And this is going to be the new laundry. So as you can see, it is extensive in comparison. It also has different rooms. So this is the dryer room and the iron. This is an automated iron. But the washing machine is actually in a room next door, washing machines. And it's passed through to this room. Okay, so that's all the visuals that I have for you. And so our presentation is almost complete. And so I'm just talking you through the program here. So very simplistically, we're using financial years, which starts from April. So it's every 3 months, every quarter, beginning from April. So the construction tender for the main construction, we've received 2 bids, and they are currently being evaluated. And so that will be completed in quarter 2 financial years. The markets and refurbishment, getting that ready for the decant in the rear of the hospital will also be completed in quarter 2. And then after that, we can do the demolition of the buildings at the rear and move everyone in. Construction starting quarter 3, quarter 4. Yes. So this is can take time in terms of evaluation, and so we are having to ask for clarification questions, and so the evaluation process is ongoing, and so therefore quarter 3, quarter 4, and so the construction then we are saying realistically quarter 3 or quarter 4. And then the construction will be completed 2 years later in 26. And the hospital opening quarter 4, 26. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing. And so I'm not quite sure how we did
Yeah, thank
from
you.
here.
Yes, Yes, thank you, Hannes, for that presentation and for the visuals, which, certainly helps us to appreciate what you're speaking about. We are now going to take some questions from the floor and also online pertaining to the hospital. Before I do that, though, Hannes, I think it's critical that that last slide that speaks to the financial year and mentions quarter 2, quarter 3, that you say what period those because persons outside of Montserrat who are not using the same time period may not be familiar with our system of reporting here on Montserrat. So if you can, that slide which ended financial year applied, construction tender being evaluated quarter 2, 2024, so that is this year, and we're now in quarter 2.
Okay, I'll put the slide up again.
Okay, he's pulling back up that, that section. It is the very last slide. I think it's critical so persons understand who are not following our system down here.
Can you see it? Can you see it?
No, not yet. But can I just read it to you and you just indicate for the online audience? Would that be okay?
Okay. Okay, so the construction tender being evaluated quarter 2, so that you're talking about you're talking about from July to September. July, August, September, yes.
So July to September, that is quarter 2 for 2024. Quarter 3 and 4 would be...
marketing.
Go right ahead, Hannes. And so just to make it easier, perhaps the financial year, for those of you online, the financial year that we use here starts from April of each year until March of the previous year. So the reference to the financial year, that's the time period they're looking at. So it's not the calendar year, of course. So it's not January to December. And it's also, if you're using another system elsewhere, it's not that. So what we use when we say the financial year here on Montserrat, we're referring to the period that starts April 1st of any particular year. So we're in 2024, April 1st to March 31st of the following year. That will be our financial year, and so the quarters would be applied in that way. Hannes, I'm going to go straight to the questions in the interest of time now. Hopefully that explanation would have been sufficient. And so I'm going to go to the questions that we would have received online for you to address. Now, the first one, will you have the ability to properly monitor the positive pressure rooms of theater and the negative pressure rooms of those isolation rooms?
Yes, definitely. As I said, we have these specific rooms that have different pressure zones, but the whole hospital it will have monitoring equipment that the maintenance people and the managers will be able to observe to ensure that everything is as it should be. So that is something that they can see, and they will be monitoring regularly.
Okay, what safety measures have you put in place for low pressure alarms in these pressure rooms, particularly in the intensive care area? I see you also have nitric gases as an option. Will the nitrous oxide gases be utilized in the intensive care units? And what safety mechanisms are in place for emergency medevac when nitric is no longer an option at 100% oxygen? Can you speak to that, or anyone from the administration?
I'm going to say that for me to talk in detail about that is not going to be possible. But what I can tell you is that the MEP experts have actually discussed all of this with the UK HSA and all of the monitoring. They have designed it in such a way that it is fit for purpose, and we have had UK HSA review that and approve all of that. So obviously UK HSA suggested some alterations, and ultimately we have ended up with something that they are really happy with.
Okay, if there are any questions from the floor, please indicate so. You'd have to go up to the mic. So I see one. Okay, you'll defer. So come up to the mic and ask your question, please. Yes.
Good afternoon. My question is, if the hospital only has 25 beds, what is the strategy for accommodating future population growth and ensuring adequate healthcare service?
So the hospital, yes, officially it has 25 beds. However, we also have beds in other forms across the hospital. So, for example, you know, the beds that are in the maternity area. But when you count all the beds in the hospital, there are 32. So, in terms of future needs, when the number of beds was calculated for the hospital and based on the population in Montserrat, it was identified that in comparison to hospitals in other countries and the calculation they use to calculate beds, there were only less than 20 beds required for Montserrat. But we decided to include some future expansion. So it is at 32, which is considerably higher than what Montserrat need at the moment. But also just to point out that if there is an emergency in Montserrat, all of the rooms, all of the treatment rooms, and there are, in total, there are approximately 20 of those. They all have patient couches in them, which double as beds. So the hospital will be able to cater for many people in an emergency. And it still has considerable growth potential for the population.
Okay, we have another question from a member of the audience, Ms. Fenton.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive and impressive report. I noticed, or I thought I saw, that we will have in the hospital CT scanner, X-ray, what else did I see? Mammogram and
Yes.
ultrasound. Are there any provisions
Yes.
for dialysis? And well, I suspect that most of the things that a CT scanner can do, most of the things, yes, an MRI might be just an extra piece of equipment. It's my understanding that an MRI would give greater detail than a CT scanner. So are there any provisions for an MRI, dialysis? And then I have another question. While you're answering that, please allow me. While you're answering that, I noticed that there was something that suggested that an endoscopy can be done. Now, my understanding, because each time I get around to doing a colonoscopy, I usually do an upper endoscopy. So is this just a question of terminology? Because if an endoscopy can be done, I thought they could also do a colonoscopy.
So let me just answer that one. So it does have a full endoscopy facility. Plus, as you know, the endoscopy needs specialist cleaning. So it has the facility for that as well. So yes, it will have that. And then in terms of the MRI and dialysis, I actually, well, it's not currently in provision, but whether that is going to happen in future, I think that the PS of Health and Social Services would be able to advise you better on that.
Okay. Did I hear that the health expert, Mrs. Gerald, you can address that? Okay. Well, then maybe the other question I have will be for you. All right?
Sorry?
The other question was going to be, did the British government or the government of Montserrat purchase the CT scanner and the mammography machine? Because on my last visit, I was at the hospital and lamenting about the wisdom of putting the CT scanner in a container outside, given the fact that we are in the hurricane belt. And I had concerns. I actually said that if a major storm passed through here, it may just pick up everything and just throw it somewhere. I'm praying that it never happens. But when I saw what happened in the Grenadines the other day, I now have major concerns about where the CT scanner is. So, and at that time, I was told by someone who does tours that the CT scanner was bought by Friends, what is it called? Helping Hands for London. And it was my understanding that, I thought I heard on Radio Montserrat that the equipment was bought by the government of Montserrat. So please clarify whether or not what pieces of equipment Helping Hands have bought, if at all they bought any, and who paid for the CT scanner and the mammography machine. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the UK government has fully funded the purchase of the CT scanner and the mammography scanner. So we applied for and we received funding for critical life-saving equipment. So that has been fully funded by them. To be honest, I am not aware of any equipment that Helping Hands has purchased. So I know that they wanted to purchase a mammography scanner, but fortunately the UK government has given us the money for that. So I would think that Helping Hands is now probably focused on raising money for a different type of equipment. So in terms of the location of the CT container, so that has been designed by the company that installed it. And it is specifically, it has a foundation and anchoring to withstand a hurricane. So we are not concerned about that. We were concerned before it had all been fastened down, but it is now fully secure. So we have no concerns about that. I would think that a hurricane would be probably affecting other buildings in the area far worse than the CT scanner container, because that has been secured. So there are no concerns about that.
Thank you. What is the reason for the delay in evaluating the tenders, and when is it expected to be completed? And that's a question submitted online.
Okay, so with the valuation of the tenders, we received the tenders and we have needed to go out to the bidders to ask them for clarifications. So that has taken some time to get the answers back. But we have them back now, and we will now be proceeding with the evaluation. So hopefully, we will be able to identify the correct preferred bidder before too long.
So I'm going to ask one more question from online, and if there's any final question from the floor, and then I'm afraid because of time, we'll have to move on to the other aspects of the symposium. So there's an individual online who is interested in a post for nursing staff, but that is not currently being advertised by the government. The individual would want to know if you can share details for HR, or essentially how can persons who are interested in employment, I think this is what the person wants to know, how can persons overseas who are interested in employment at the hospital express an interest even at this early stage before the completion? And I see the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, approaching the mic, Hannes, so can we just give way to her? She's in person.
Good afternoon. This is just to indicate that we have a very active recruitment process, so even though there aren't any vacancies that you're currently seeing, you can apply to HRMU at gov.ms. You can also send an email to mehcsmail@gov.ms. That's to the Ministry of Health and Social Services, so that we can redirect. We currently have nursing vacancies, both for staff nurse and for registered nurses. We have a vacancy gap of more than 20. So we are actively recruiting. It's an ongoing process, but we have to go through GOM processes, and there, as you noticed, there are a lot of adverts on the GOM board. There are some that we're going through shortlisting already, but it's a continuous process. So applications we always welcome.
Right, so they can submit even if they don't see anything being advertised currently.
Yes, and they can write to the ministry, and we can direct, because we're also in the process. And what we actually do to fast track recruitment is that we pass the applications through our nursing and midwives board. That allows the committee to look at you to see whether you can be registered in Montserrat. When you would have, we then communicate with the person who would have sent in the application, and then we would forward that on to HRM just to fast track the process, because we still have to be registered to practice in Montserrat by law.
Thank you for that. So I'm also going to ask Vernier Bass, who's handling our online responses, to put those email addresses in the chat so persons are aware of where to channel those to. One last question from the floor, and then we'll have to close off on the health presentation.
Good afternoon. I made an observation. I didn't see any chapel for the hospital, so I was wondering about that. And then the main question that I had was, how will you treat with the biomedical waste you're planning to put in an incinerator, and if so, would it be on site?
Okay, yes. So we did actually consider a separate chapel, but we decided that it potentially would be sitting empty a lot of the time. So we agreed that the conference room would be would function as a chapel as needed. In terms of the biomed waste, yes, we have ordered a medical incinerator. It is state-of-the-art medical incinerator. It incinerates everything. There's nothing left like some of the old type incinerators other than ashes, and it also has filters so that it doesn't dispense anything into the air or the environment. So yeah, that has been fully catered for.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to ask persons online and elsewhere, those of you listening here on Montserrat as well, if you have further questions pertaining to the hospital project or any topic covered in the symposium, you can send an email to info@montserrattourism.ms. That will be placed in the online stream as well. Send your questions and comments there, and those will be dispatched to the relevant authorities who would have presented here today. I see 2 new questions coming in online. We're going to send that to Hannes directly and reply in the chat in the interest of time today. So again, thank you so much, Hannes de Bruin, who is the hospital project manager, for your presentation today.
Okay, thank you very much.
At this point, because it is a symposium about encouraging that connection with Montserratians living overseas and, you know, creating an avenue where they can access information on how to invest and so forth, we do have presenters who are going to give just a brief chat on their experiences as Montserratians living in the diaspora, or who would have returned home and either built or established a property, whatever it is, or business. So at this point, we have Miss Rodelphia Weeks, who is a homeowner and business owner. She lives in the UK, but she's a homeowner and business owner here in Montserrat of Flawless Visage, Holistic and Wellness Spa. And we would like her at this point to share her experiences building and establishing a home and a business on Montserrat. She's joining us virtually, so we say good afternoon to Rodelphia. Thank you for participating.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Yeah, go on.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so let's introduce myself. I'm Rodelphia Weeks. I'm the CEO of Flawless Visage, Holistic and Wellness Spa. I'm born and bred in Montserrat, and I moved to the UK in 2001, and I can't wait to return home in the not too distant future. For you today, but I've got some notes down and stuff, and I can go through them today with you. So basically, it has been the biggest financial investment of my life. And it has not always been an easy road, but we got there in the end. So just to start, so the planning and architectural aspects of it, it started in 2022. And my project consists of 2 floors. The first floor being the spa and also an Airbnb. And the second floor is my living quarters, to be completed in the future. In April of 2023, that's when the actual building project started, and in December. So it took roughly 8 to 9 months max. Okay, so some of the lessons learned during the process. Building, as you know, is a huge risk, and everything can seem so daunting and overwhelming, even more so when you reside abroad. Don't just rely on who you know and what they say. but rely more on people that can deliver with minimal risk. Hire the right people and ask questions. Your builder or contractor's word is not gospel, and it's okay to challenge him or get a second opinion, which I did with my contractor, and he could vouch for that. Have someone on the ground, basically have a project manager. When you're living abroad, it's very difficult, especially when you're 4 to 5 hours behind. Okay. Necessary, and remove disappearing messages. I think that was one of the biggest contractor and everyone on the ground.
Unfortunately, you're breaking up
via
quite
telephone,
a bit here.
WhatsApp telephone calls, and then the disappearing messages, I forgot to remove. I do apologize for that. Is it clearer?
Yes, yes. So
Any
hold it like that. Yes, that's better.
Hello? Okay. If you can meet the necessary criteria, always get a mortgage, as it saves a lot of headache and hassles. Financial security is the best. Security in the funds distributed or dispersed in stages is the best way to go. The site or loans officer will perform a site visit beforehand, and in most cases send you images on request, because it says this is this or this is this. You want to see images. Know exactly what you want. If you want to purchase or refurbish, or if you want to build from scratch, where in my case, I built from scratch because I wanted something more custom, more bespoke. For me, I needed to know, I knew exactly what I wanted. So from the get-go, I had a chit chat with the architect, and we went from there. And he gave me basically the design I wanted, and I know I needed for the spa and for the Airbnb. It's also important to have a business plan. It hate everything. I can't emphasize that enough. Is it okay for me to continue?
Sure, yes. I was told, 5 minutes or 10 minutes? 5 minutes, right, for this presentation, though? Yeah. Yes. I'll go through it quickly. Setting up my business. Building my spa has been my dream since I started in 2016 in the world of spa, and has been at the forefront of my 10-year business forecast, which I managed to do in 7 years. I have set another new professional goal to achieve in 5 years, life permitted. Then I would return home to the land of my birth. That's my paradise. Just to talk a little bit about Flawless Visage Holistic and Wellness Spa. It's located in Peaceful Cottage. That's the area where I grew up. So it has a lot of meaning to me. So some of the treatments, 5 minutes, 75 minutes, and 90 minutes massages, facials, scrubs, and we look at products, sustainable and animal or cruelty-free products, okay? That's both good for clients and also for the environment. I'm usually on the island twice annually, March and December, okay? And I've already scheduled it in my calendar for December. December and March, my property is unavailable for rental as an Airbnb, because that's where my mom spends her time. At least 3 to 4 months respite for my mom. Okay? How does it make me feel? Extremely proud. I feel accomplished. Thank you. We lost you there, but thank you so much at the last few seconds. But thank you so much. You have provided some good information and useful lessons learned and tips for those online. And I would say
You're
here,
most welcome.
yes, Rodelphia, you know, you're accessible
You're welcome.
online, and I'm sure you can share your views and your experiences with others whenever requested to do so. Now, we are going to transition into our next presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Into our next presentation, it segues nicely from what Rodelphia spoke about in terms of mortgages and so forth, because we do have a representative from the Bank of Montserrat Limited. We have Mrs. Kathyan Lee-Fenton, who is the General Manager acting. She has over 25 years of experience in banking. She began her career at Bank of Montserrat Limited in 1997 and has served in all critical areas of the bank's operation. In addition, she has held several supervisory positions, including Senior Supervisor of Customer Service and Sales, Senior Supervisor of Credit and Advances, Teller Supervisor, and Systems Officer. She holds the substantive position of Senior Manager of Operations. However, from January 2024 to the present, she has performed as Acting General Manager, responsible for the overall management and operations of the bank. Kathyan holds a BSc in Management Studies with first-class honors from the University of the West Indies and a diploma in banking from the Graduate School of Banking at Louisiana State University. So at this point, join me in welcoming Mrs. Kathyan Lee-Fenton, General Manager Acting of the Bank of Montserrat Limited.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to everybody listening, everybody that's present, and everyone that's listening virtually. Before I begin, I would want to say thank you very much to the team at the at the Tourism Department for inviting the Bank of Montserrat to share in this Diaspora Forum regarding our products and services. As I start, I would want to give a brief overview on the background of the Bank of Montserrat Limited. It all started with the dream of a group of Montserratians to open Montserrat's first indigenous commercial bank. This became a reality on the 3rd of May, 1988, when Bank of Montserrat Limited was incorporated as a limited liability company. With a population of approximately 11,000 people, there were 3 other commercial banks operating on the island at the time. But Montserratians were proud to have their own bank and responded positively and enthusiastically, placing their hard-earned money in the bank and getting the institution off to an excellent start. And today, we say thank you very much to those Montserratians who were committed and had the foresight to do so. Since then, the bank has registered impressive growth rates, with total assets increasing from 5.1 million in 1988 to 418 million in 2023. In April 2021, the bank acquired the banking business of the Royal Bank of Canada, its Montserrat branch, increasing the bank's customer base from approximately 12,000 to 15,000 customers. Today, we are proud to be the market leader among the financial intermediaries in Montserrat. Looking forward to the next 36 years and beyond, the bank must remain relevant in a rapidly changing financial landscape, especially considering increased customer demands and regulatory requirements. As part of our strategic direction, the bank is committed to enhancing efficiency by adopting innovative technologies. And to this end, we continue to improve our mobile banking app, as well as we are currently testing a product that we plan to launch sometime in early September. It's a cross-border payment system which we are currently processing with the assistance of MasterCard and IBIS. Can I have the next slide, please? It's slide number 4. Slide number 4 will outline the products and services offered by the bank for personal banking. For those listening, there are regular banking products like your savings account, and for the savings account, we have both regular and over 60 savings accounts. We have checking accounts, fixed deposits, US dollar accounts. We also have 2 ATM machines that offer 24-hour services, or safety deposit boxes, wire transfers for US sterling and EC. We recently introduced the electronic funds transfer, which allows for funds to be transferred within the EC territories through the EC ACH, which is a product that was launched about 2 to 3 years ago. We also do foreign exchange, US, sterling, euro, Canadian, and Bayesian cash. We have our online as well as the mobile banking app, which I would have mentioned earlier. We do standing order payments, loans and advances, credit cards, and other services like your confirmation of balances and references, your utility payments, and we introduced within the more recent years our wealth building products, which include an individual retirement account, a wealth builder account, and an education savings investment product. We also have our point of sale service as well. Next slide. The next slide has our corporate banking products, and they're similar to our personal banking products. The additional products and services would include a night deposit facility, merchant services online, and the online merchant service product allows for businesses to register with us so that customers who have the online banking product will be able to pay the merchant through the mobile app. So at the click of a button, merchants, business places can receive payments. And not just business places, we actually have one church that is actually registered on the app. So you can actually pay your tithe or donate to the church online. For businesses, we do letters of credits, guarantees and performance bonds, and audit confirmations when required. So in terms of our products and services, I would want to delve because it's a diaspora symposium, I would want to delve into the personal savings accounts, the benefits and features, and how persons overseas, can go about opening a savings account with us. The world of banking is changing. You don't have to be in an individual space. Look at today where we have persons attending virtually. You don't have to be present at the bank to open an account we offer this service to Montserratians and persons with Montserratian parentage residing overseas. So in terms of the features, there's a $1 minimum balance requirement, only $1. Interest is paid quarterly at the rate of 2% per annum on the minimum monthly balance. There's a $10 monthly maintenance fee. However, no maintenance fee is charged when a customer has a mortgage with us, credit card collateral at savings accounts, and on loan-related savings plan account. So if you have a mortgage with us, the account that services the mortgage will not be charged the $10 monthly maintenance fee. In terms of the savings account, all customers have the option of getting an ATM card allowing withdrawals and deposits at any time. And with the way that banking is going now, everybody should get an ATM card because it's banking at your convenience. The bank closes at 2 o'clock and you need to get funds, the ATM card. There's a $2,000 limit per day. So if you require, which the amount that most persons withdraw from the ATM from what we are seeing is under 2,000. So if you require funds on a weekend when we're closed or after 2 when we're closed, you'll need to get an ATM card to make sure that you can make that a possibility. We allow 4 free withdrawals per month, and there's no charge for account deposits at all. In terms of our online banking, once you have an account with the bank, we extend free online and mobile banking access so that you can view your account, you can do your transactions online at your convenience, and free utility bill payments. So once you're a customer of the bank, you are able to make your bill payments free. In terms of the requirements to open, as I would have indicated, we only open accounts virtually for our diaspora customers who are Montserratians or persons with Montserratian parentage. And the reason for this is because there are restrictions, regulations in terms of knowing your customer. And in terms of the persons that we are allowing to open online, these would be persons that would be affiliated with Montserrat and have an interest with Montserrat, and hence we would want to afford them the opportunity of being able to have an account on Montserrat. So the minimum opening balance is $50. Individuals will be required to provide 2 valid government-issued photo ID, one of which should be your passport. The reason for requesting the passport is that we are required to complete compliance checks, and our software that conducts these checks for us, they use the passport in terms of confirming that the passport is valid and confirming other information that we require, providing other information that we require to do our due diligence process. We would require as well, in terms of knowing our customers, proof of residential address, and this can be in the form of a utility bill or a copy of a lease or rental agreement. And of course, a job letter to verify the source of the income that you'll be passing through the account at the bank, and as well as a reference from your current banker. Now, if you're unemployed and you would not be able to provide us with a job letter, so what we would request in that instance would be 2 character references. So these can be from your current bankers, an attorney, your accountant, or a well-known and respected long-standing member Bank of Montserrat customer. Persons will also be required to complete our new account form, and this is the form that we use to collect personal data, as well as an individual tax certification form. This form is a form that we are required to complete in connection with FATCA to indicate whether you are affiliated with the United States of America, as well as a signature card, which would provide us with the details you're signing, so that whenever you're doing your transaction, we can review the signature card to ensure that the person who's withdrawing from the account is the actual account holder. For our diaspora customers, the documents we are requesting from you, because situations are changing, we require up-to-date documents, and hence we also require that your documents are not more than 3 months old. In addition, because you're not signing in the presence of a bank employee, we rely on a notary public, an attorney, or in order to make it easier for our diaspora customers in the UK, because we've been informed that a notary in the UK is quite expensive. We would have collaborated with Mr. Ralston Allen. I'm sure most persons would know him. He's a Montserratian accountant living in the UK, and also with the Montserrat UK Overseas Office in terms of witnessing the customer signing the documents, just to ensure that whoever is producing the documents for the bank, that they're actually who they say they are. So when you visit, you'll visit with your ID documents, and they will witness you signing the documents. And in most instances, once that process is completed, they would forward the documents to the bank, and we will commence the process, the due diligence process, and we would reach out to the customer in terms of the deposit for opening the account. In terms of products and services and the diaspora, as well as I would want to do it because I recognize that there would be Montserratians who would be listening, local Montserratians who would be listening, I wanted to touch on the mobile banking app. The bank has invested heavily in providing services to move customers away from the banking hall and to alternative channels. And the mobile banking app is one such product. The forum, we were asked to promote our products and services, and this is one that I would dearly like to promote, because no more do our customers need to actually come into the bank to conduct their transactions. Almost everything that you can do within the banking hall, you can do via the mobile app. So I'm pleading with all customers of the bank, if you don't already have the app, you can request the application via email. We will forward it to you, or you can visit the bank if you prefer to get some more details and to complete the application and agreement forms. So it is free. There is no charge for the mobile banking apps service. Like I said, it's 24 hours, so it's at your convenience. It facilitates balance inquiry, so you can check your balance online at any time. If at 2 o'clock in the morning you're up and you decide that you want to know what your balance on your bank account is, you can just log on, and at the click of a button, you will find out what your balance is. You don't have to wait until the next morning at 8 o'clock when the bank is open to call to find out, what your balance is. And that is the way that we're looking to move the bank. You can conduct your wire transfers, electronic funds transferred, online bill payments, so you can pay MOL, you can pay Digicel, you can pay Flow. For those persons who have credit cards with the bank, you can pay your credit card all through the mobile app. Again, by the click of a button. You can retrieve your statements, you can view check images for those persons who have checking accounts, and there are a lot of persons who send requests or emails to the bank. Now, we all know emails are not a secure form of communication, but in terms of the mobile app, we have a secure messaging feature built within it that our customers can contact the bank and be assured that, the bank can have the assurance as well as the customer in terms of the message that's coming, it is actually coming from the customer. You can do peer-to-peer payments. So if you have a friend or a relative who have the app that you want to transfer monies across to, that can be done on the app. You can top up your phone. And we also have, like I would have spoken about, the online merchant services. And the next slide would have on a list of the merchants that are registered on the app. And we don't discriminate. So if you have an account with another financial institution on Montserrat, so if you have an account with the Montserrat Building Society or the St. Patrick's Credit Union, you can transfer from your Bank of Montserrat Limited account straight over to one of these financial institutions, again, at the click of a button. If you want to donate to the Red Cross, or if you want to pay MS Osborne, among other merchants, you can do it via the app straight from your account. Okay, I'm thinking that this is what most persons would want to hear quite a bit about, and it's the credit facilities that are available to our diaspora customers. So Bank of Montserrat Limited offers loans to persons within the diaspora for land purchase, house and land purchase, and house construction. The personal items that would be required from interested persons would be, again, a certified copy of 2 forms of valid government-issued ID. Now, if you already have an account with the bank and you have these documents are up to date, you will not be required to produce them again because we already have them within the bank. We would need a bank reference from your bank because, of course, you're looking for credit. So, and especially if you're a first-time credit customer, we have to get documents to help us ascertain your credit worthiness. So that would be in the form of a reference from your bank, as well as overseas you have credit bureau reports. So we actually take reports from Equifax and Experience, among other agencies. We would require proof of income in the form of a job letter or certified copies of tax returns. And this, of course, will help us verify the income that you're stating that you make, so that, again, we could properly assess your ability to service the loan. We would require you to complete what we call a statement of affairs and an monthly income and expenditure statement. Now, both of these are bank forms. The statement of affairs records your assets and liabilities. So that's basically what you own and, on the other hand, what you owe. The monthly income and expenditure would be a statement outlining your income and your spending on a monthly basis. And of course, some persons would ask, oh, why does the bank need all of that? It is important to note that the money that the bank has is not the bank's money. It's our customers' monies that we are lending out, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that when we are lending, we take the necessary steps to ensure, that we can recover these funds. In terms of the transactional items that we require, we would require a copy of the land certificate and map sheet. Now, this would indicate to the bank, if you're purchasing property, it would indicate to the bank, you will get it from the person that owns the land. It shows or it verifies ownership. So we are trying to protect you as well as the bank. We don't want to enter into an arrangement where you're doing a loan and the person that's selling you the property does not actually own the property. So this is what that would indicate, the actual ownership of the property. We would also require a valuation report of not more than 6 months old from a Bank of Montserrat Limited approved appraiser or valuator. This report would show the property details, so it would have basically the block and parcel number, where the property is located. It would show the topography of the land, the size of the land, and it would also provide a construction estimate. And if you're that's if you're constructing. If you're actually purchasing, it would give the bank an idea, and you as well, an idea that of the value of the property, so that we know when you take this loan, it will be sufficient to complete the project. In addition, if you're purchasing, we would want to see a sale agreement outlining the terms of the sale and including details of the property and the selling price and any other agreement within that is made between yourself and the seller. So if you're required to produce a deposit, that would be contained within the sale agreement. If constructing, a copy of the approved plan and building approval letter from the physical planning department, plus the builder's estimate or bill of quantities. Other requirements or information, customers will be required to do a contribution or a deposit towards the project. This ranges between 10 to 25%. And this depends on the risk that the bank assesses or the loan amount that the customer can qualify for. So let's take, for instance, you are requesting a loan for $300,000 to build or to purchase. And you come to the bank and you say, we do an assessment and you only qualify for $250,000. Now, of course, 10% of the $300,000 would be $30,000. So there's a gap in terms of between the $300,000 and the $250,000 that you qualify for. So in that instance, to ensure that you're able to complete the project, we will ask you to inject $50,000 or to show to the bank whether you can get cost savings in terms of that additional $20,000 gap. Our mortgage rates start at 5%. They range between 5% and 6%. And again, loans are priced according to the risk that the banks assess. When we say the risk that we assess is in terms of when we do the assessment and you may meet some of our requirements, but there are some that you don't meet, but the banks still want to reach out and to assist you in attaining your dream. We would indicate to you what the issues are, and we would price the loan basically according to what the risk the additional risk that we assess. Our mortgage term, that's the number of years that you are given to repay, ranges between 10 and 30 years, and this is dependent on the age of the applicant. What we're saying is, at maturity of the loan, we want you to be not more than 65 years old. And that is put in place to ensure that persons, when they reach retirement, they can afford to make the mortgage payments. We don't want you to be struggling at retirement. We want you to retire comfortably, so we want to ensure that you're able to complete your mortgage by retirement age. In terms of our loan fee, we charge 1% of the loan amount, and there would be some additional fees in terms of legal fees that are paid to the attorney for if you are purchasing property, the transfer of title, as well, and if you're purchasing as well as building, what we call collateral for the loan will be a mortgage charge on the property, and the attorney is charged to do that. So that fee would also be for the customer's account. We also request life and property insurance. As we know, Montserrat is within a volcanic region, a hurricane region. We are prone to natural disasters. So you want to ensure that you have something in place in the event of one of these natural disasters, and that would be property insurance. Some persons do not feel that life insurance is important, but it is important, because let's say, God forbid, something happens to you, then the life insurance kicks in, and that can be used to repay the debt so that your loved ones do not have to think about having to pay a mortgage. It will be covered. It should be covered by your life insurance. Before I go on, in terms of the construction, and Rodelphia, thank you, she would have covered on it. When we do our construction loans, we request, I would have indicated, a construction estimate and an estimate from the builder. Within the builder's estimate, one of the things that we request is a breakdown of the stages, a breakdown of the cost of the various stages. That actually helps bank officers to assess what is going on and to ensure that at the end of the loan, your project is completed. So we pay against the stages. And she would have mentioned it as well. One of the things that we do is our officers actually go out on site to visit to ensure that when the contractor says they've finished a stage, we actually go on site to ensure that the stage is completed. One of the things that we do, why we go on site is, if we don't go on site, then the customer would be required to pay an additional fee in terms of getting the valuator to go on site and prepare a report to indicate that the project is at the stage where it actually, where the contractor says it is. So we actually help in that manner, in that our officers go out and do site visits, you know, and the stage breakdowns are very comprehensive. So when you go out, if they're saying that the walls are up, you can actually see, you know, that the walls are up. So we assess, and then we make the payment. We contact the customer. For customers who are not living on island, we actually reach out to the customer to let them know what is happening and to get their permission as well. We do photos as well so that we can forward to the customer so that they are comfortable that the project is at the stage where it's at. Okay, in terms of savings and investment opportunities within the bank has 4 products outside savings account that assist persons in building their wealth and building their savings. And the first one is a fixed deposit. Our fixed deposit product, the requirement is minimum $10,000 deposit, and the interest rate is 2%. The interest rate is the same as our savings rate. However, in terms of the interest paid, it is calculated differently. So in terms of interest, you will get a higher interest on a fixed deposit than a savings account. The interest is calculated on the daily balance. So whatever your balance is, the interest is worked on your daily balance, and you are paid at the end of the maturity. Our fixed deposits, we have 2 terms. We have a 6-month term, and we have a one-year term. The other products we have are what we call our wealth management products. And the first one is an individual retirement account. You want to start saving for retirement. So we thought it prudent to put this product in place so that customers can start building their retirement nest egg. And on this product, the interest rate is actually a little higher than the savings rate. So it's at 2.5%. And if you have a mortgage with the bank, we actually pay you 3% interest on that product. It requires fixed monthly contributions, and the minimum amount you can deposit to this account is $100. So especially if you start early, you're never too young to start thinking about your retirement. And if you are age 18 and you start saving $100 every month, plus the interest on that account, imagine where you would be when you reach retirement. The other product that we have is, we're thinking of parents who would have children going to university and have education expenses, university expenses. So we actually did an education savings investment plan, which the minimum amount is $50, and parents can deposit to this account. Again, it's a monthly compulsory deposit over a fixed term. The maximum age of the student would be age 18. So you're saving for the child from now until they become 18 years. And if your child is, let's say the child is already 15, there's a 3-year minimum contributory period. So the oldest that your child can be for you to open this product would be 15 years. And it would give you 3 years savings in terms of for their education. The interest rate on this product is actually the same, 2.5%, and if you have a mortgage, then you're paid 3%. Now, my favorite one of all is the Wealth Builder. So this is a medium-term savings investment plan that facilitates the creation of wealth to meet short-term or medium-term goals. So if you plan to buy a car in the next 3 years, this product is ideal for you. It will prevent you having to take a loan from the bank because you can start saving now for towards the purchase of the vehicle. The plan requires fixed monthly contributions over, we have 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year periods. And the rates range from 2.5% to 3.25%. So you can actually get a maximum of 3.25%. And that is not even it. The rates, the interest on these accounts are paid monthly. So your interest is being compounded. So from the day you open the account, a month after, the interest that you would have, the amount that you would have deposited to that account will start accruing interest, and your interest is deposited to the account a month after, and then the following month, that interest plus the amount you deposited would gain interest and going forward. Now, on that product, we actually have a brochure that will show you how much, if you decide you're saving $200 a month, it will show you at the end of 2 years, or at the end of 3 years, or at the end of 5 years, how much the bank is required to pay you. So we've actually worked it out, and we have a table for the various scenarios. So anybody can visit the bank or request a copy of the brochure, and we can email it to you, email the information to you if you're interested in this product. And finally, like I would have said before, we are pleased to have been allowed the opportunity to share our products and services offerings in this forum, and we look forward to further engaging with the attendees in person, those persons who are listening virtually, and as well as other members of the diaspora in terms of catering to whatever financial needs that you have. So even those persons who are not attending, what we are requesting is that those persons who are attending can share the information with their friends and families, and you can reach out to the bank at any time. Do not hesitate. Our general email address is manager@bankofmontserrat.ms, and we will provide whatever additional information, and I'm sure that the tourist board will make the presentation available to those interested persons. Finally, Bank of Montserrat Limited remains committed to the growth and development of Montserrat, and we will try to do this, or continue to do this, through further diaspora engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kathyan Fenton, General Manager Acting of the Bank of Montserrat Limited. I'll ask you to stay there so we can have the quick Q&A as well. So we do have some questions online. I'll get to those now. I'll pull those up. If you have any questions on the floor, kindly indicate so. Let me also pause very quickly to recognize the presence of Montserrat's governor online, who is following the Diaspora Symposium, Her Excellency Governor Sarah Tucker. She sends apologies for not being able to be present here today, but she is following the discussion. And so we go to the first question. Why does it take so long to get a business credit card?
One of the things I actually should have mentioned, it really does not take, it should not take longer than at maximum 2 weeks to get a business credit card. The reason for the length of time in terms of the credit card, Bank of Montserrat, our credit card facility is managed in St. Kitts with the Caribbean Credit Card Company. So what happens, the process basically is for customers to complete the forms. We forward them to St. Kitts via email in terms of our, through email, and then they complete the process. The printing of their cards, it's done we have to send the application by Friday. Cards are printed on Tuesday, and they're sent out to us via FedEx. Sometimes there's a challenge in terms of getting the cards on island, but once the cards are on Montserrat, then our team would reach out. So it shouldn't take generally more than about 2 weeks from the application time to get, once we have all the information. And it is important in terms of all our products and services, it is important to ensure that when you present your documents, you present all the documents and they are in order, because if that is not done, then it will create delays.
Okay, well, this person has submitted a supplementary. He was told 6 months and not 2 weeks, so that is something perhaps needs
6
to
months.
be.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the person can reach out to me, I can look into it for them. My email address is Kathyan, that's Kathyan, 1N, .Fenton @bankofmontserrat.ms, and I will research it for them. But it definitely should not take 6 months. The maximum term is 2 weeks.
Suppose I don't have anyone to provide a character witness. What are the alternatives?
Like I would have indicated, a bank reference, and it doesn't have to be a bank. If you have an account with the credit union or the building society, we would accept that reference as well. The references are actually regulatory requirements in terms of part of the know your customer process.
If you own property on Montserrat, can you get a loan on your property for property improvement?
Certainly. I didn't mention that here. Yeah, we definitely, it is a mortgage loan. So our mortgage loans cover construction, purchase, as well as improvement. So yes, the person can get a loan to improve.
What is the age? Go on.
Sorry, and the rates would be the same, 5 to 6%.
What is the age limit for approving mortgages?
Like I would have indicated, there is really no age limit. At the maturity of the loan, the customer should not be more than 65. So if you look at your age at the moment, so if you are, let's say, 50, then taking it to 65 would be 15 years. So it depends. It depends on how old you are. If you are 65, of course, you would not get a mortgage because it will not facilitate the repayment period. If you're 60, it will only afford you 5 years. So of course, if it's affording you 5 years and you're looking for, let's say, $300,000 mortgage, then your monthly payments will be extremely high. And if you're unable to prove to the bank that you have the ability to meet those payments, then of course, unfortunately, we would not be able to approve that facility.
How can you stop the charges if you do not have another product with the bank? And I'm assuming these are credit card charges or the charges for your savings, but the question here, how can you stop the charges if you do not have another product with the bank?
Well, in terms of the credit cards and the charges, there's an annual fee on the credit card, and unfortunately, you are unable to stop that charge. But in terms of the monthly interest on the credit card, what can be done, if you make a purchase on the card and you repay it before the 28th of the month, then there is nothing to charge you on. In terms of the savings account, our 60-plus account, so if you're age 60 and over, we do not charge you the minimum $10 monthly savings maintenance fee. However, the 60-plus product is an opt-in. So you will be required to reach out to the bank, provide your ID, and some persons may ask why you're requesting ID when you already have an ID on file when we open the account. But what we are required to get up-to-date information from customers. So that is one of the reasons why when we request your ID, we request your ID with an expiry date. So once the ID expires, you are required to provide the bank with an updated ID. So because we have a lot of diaspora customers, one of the things we do is request an up-to-date ID, which helps us to update our records because unfortunately, there's a reluctance to provide updated ID. So that is one of the reasons why we actually ask for persons to provide an updated ID when they're requesting. And it's simple. It's a letter indicating that you've attained the age of 60 and you would like your account to be converted to a 60-plus account. In terms of other savings account, I think we have a minimum balance account in terms of the maintenance charge. And I think I'm correct in saying that it's $200. So if your account balance is $200 and under, we don't charge you the $10. But if your account, so that would assist our our salary account holders. So if you simply have your account just to facilitate your receiving your salary, once your balance is under $200, we do not deduct the monthly $10 maintenance fee.
Final question from our online viewers. How do you go about making international mortgage payments?
Okay, so when we do the mortgage for you in the bank, we would also provide you with our corresponding banking details so that you can send the funds through wire transfers. There are some customers, regrettably, who have issues in terms of forwarding their funds to us. The information that we provide is accurate, it is adequate for the banks overseas to forward the funds. But what you find, because banks overseas are so large, they may not be familiar in terms of the formatting. So it sometimes create delays in terms of us getting the funds. But what we've been doing is that our staff, once we are notified of it, we would request from the customer a copy of whatever form you have to fill or whatever it is that you have to fill, and we will assist the customer in putting the information in the correct place. So customers can send their funds to service the loan through wire transfers. What they can do as well, if you don't want the monthly charge of sending the wire transfer, having to send that money monthly, you can choose to do a 6-month buffer. So you can send 6 months worth of payment, and our mortgages are attached. We don't have individual persons going into the account and taking it out. There's a savings account that we request from you that's tied to the mortgage, and our system deducts it automatically. So it's a seamless process.
All right, so we have a clarification here by the individual who asked about the charges. It's not credit card. I am being charged on my savings and I am not 60 yet. How can I stop this charge?
Well, unfortunately, unless their balance is under $200, there's no way, basically, of stopping that charge. It's a charge that's applied to all customers.
Okay, so we just had all online questions. Anyone from the floor? So we have one question from the floor. While you make your way up, I see one question that I'm just going to pop in. And it's a very quick question here. In terms of the wealth builder, when the interest is added, is it compounded?
Yes, it's compounded. So because it's compounded, you end up earning more in interest at the end of the period.
Thank you. To the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Fenton, for that very comprehensive presentation. I have often or always had issues with what feels like age discrimination, because unfortunately I'm not familiar with what happens in the UK.
Sorry, I'm not hearing you. Right, thank you.
I'm saying I have always had issues with the bank's decision, which feels like age discrimination. I'm not familiar with what happens in the UK, but in the US, nobody even sees your age. As long as you have the ability to pay the mortgage, or whatever loan it is, they give you the loan, because otherwise you get sued for age discrimination. So the question I have, is this a regulation required by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank? Are they the ones that made the rule? And are all of the banks in that union following the same, what I'm calling age discrimination?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot really speak to the policies of the various banks within the region. It's not intended to be age discrimination. It's intended basically to help the customer not, because if you're age 65 and you're taking a mortgage of, on a pension, as a matter of fact, most customers at age 65 are unable to qualify in terms of the pension payment that they're getting and the mortgage payment that would be required. We do look at loans, smaller loans for customers at age 65. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Okay. But in terms of the mortgage and the level of the repayment for the mortgage, it would create some strain. So we're actually looking to protect the customer, as well as, like I would have indicated, we have a responsibility to ensure that when we are lending, we have policies and procedures to geared towards responsible lending.
Yeah, but I'm not sure I agree with that, because remember I started off by saying, if in your assessment you deem that the customer is able to pay the monthly mortgage, then age shouldn't be an issue.
Well, as it is a higher risk loan, we would consider it. Like I said, any proposal that comes to us, we just don't turn it down because of the age.
Okay.
But what I would have presented is the general policy.
Right.
So we would look at it on a case-by-case basis, and then, ascertain what the risk involved are. And like I would have indicated before, then we would rate it on a risk-based approach.
Okay, my other question is, does the bank have specific appraisers that they use, specific lawyers that they use? Because my concern would be that if I am getting involved in anything with the bank and I have a relationship already with my lawyer and I prefer to use my lawyer to do my transaction, how does that work?
Okay, so we have a panel of valuators, we have a panel of attorneys. In terms of the valuators have to meet a certain criteria, which would have been presented to us recently based on an ECCB prudential guidelines in terms of property valuations. So the valuator has to be certified under a certain agency. I think RICS is one. I'm not quite certain of I can't quite remember at this time the other one. RICS, that's an institute, I think, out of Canada. Okay. In terms of the attorney, we have a panel of attorneys. We would not prevent you from using your attorney if your attorney is not on our panel. But of course, if you wish to pursue with your attorney, we would need to have the charge document, what we call vised, by our attorney to ensure that what is written within the charge document protects you as well as it protects the bank, and it has all the requirements within it.
Okay, and in that process...
Then, in terms of the charge for the vising of the document, that would be for your account, unfortunately.
For my account, I still have to pay for that?
Yes, because you're requesting to use your own attorney. So that would be an additional charge.
I'm not sure I understand that, but I'll probably pay a visit to the bank and clear that up.
Sorry?
I said that is not making much sense to me, but maybe what I do, rather than hog the time because it's already late, I could pay a visit to the bank and have you help me clarify that.
Yeah, we can speak about it after. No further questions. So I would like to thank everybody for listening, and I hope that the information that I would have given this afternoon, would have clarified something for somebody, or would help somebody in terms of, having confidence in visiting the bank to have whatever financial need that you have, have a discussion on it so that we can, meet your financial needs. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you again, Mrs. Kathyan Lee-Fenton, General Manager Acting of the Bank of Montserrat Limited. We are now going to advance into another presentation here this afternoon, and we do have some other shared experiences from Montserratians in the diaspora, which will come at the end. But we are going into another presentation right now. It is going to be on real estate, process for purchasing property. And to deliver this, we have the founder of Buffonge and Associates, Mr. Fitzroy Buffonge. He is a renowned barrister at law and notary public, and the founder of Buffonge and Associates, which he has led since 2015. He earned his law degree from the University of Law, London Law School in 2009, and he is a distinguished member of the Honourable Society of Lincoln's Inn, London. He completed his pupillage at Holborn Chambers from 2010 to 2011 and is a qualified member of the English Bar from 2012 to 2015. He worked at the Attorney General's Chambers here on Montserrat. Please join me in welcoming Barrister at Law, Mr. Fitzroy Buffonge.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Madam Chair. Some of the aspects I wish to cover today have been dealt with by Mrs. Fenton. I'm very thankful. It makes it easy for me. But basically, the typical client who wants to purchase property in Montserrat, whether it's land or house and land, certain steps have to be taken. And the starting point is typically the client may want to engage a real estate agent. That agent presumably have a lawyer or a couple of lawyers that work for them. So they'll pass the instructions on. But the lawyer has to collect vital bits of information. For example, block and parcel number, name of the vendor, name of the purchaser, and the attorney has to conduct searches at the land registry. You may want to ask why. Well, if the attorney fails to carry out these searches, he'll be running into serious error. For one, he would not know the status of the property, who it's owned by, and location, whether the block and parcel number is correct. And if he were to go and produce a sales agreement with the wrong block and parcel number, that contract will be void and of no effect. So it's very important that the searches are done. The other important aspect of the search is this. There may be encumbrances on the land. For example, the seller might have had a mortgage with a bank. There may be leases. And most banks want to have a clear title. It's not that you can't have two mortgages in it, but most banks would prefer to have a clean title, so when they enter their mortgage, they're the only person on it. Now, the other important aspect is the physical inspection. I do not believe that, and I know we as lawyers are not trained to assess structures. That's not our field. And I strongly recommend that once a property is involved, that a structural engineer be engaged. Now, a distinction has to be drawn between a structural engineer and a surveyor. If you're buying land alone, you will not need a structural engineer because the surveyor is competent enough to actually survey the boundaries, locate the pegs, etc. But once a property, a structure is involved, that surveyor cannot, in my view, adequately indicate any defects. So I yield to a structural engineer in those circumstances. He's trained to deal with that kind of work, and lawyers cannot assess that area. Now, there are times when the purchaser chooses to inspect the property on his own, but there's a risk. Again, the purchaser may not have the skill sets to really go to the critical areas, examine beams, foundations, etc. So you're, again, running a risk of trying to circumvent, I would say, having to engage the structural surveyor. But again, if the purchaser wants to take the risk against legal advice to purchase the property as is, we're going to a different realm now. You're basically going to a contract to say, look, I'm purchasing it as is. It means you take everything that comes with it. If the purchaser fails to inspect, then he would have had what we call constructive notice of any identifiable defects, and he will be bound by them. So that's why it's important to seek legal advice, hire competent and proficient people to do your work. Sometimes it might be $500, $1,000 more, but it's worth it rather than run the risk. So that structural engineer or surveyor will compile a report. Now, the report has various functions. If you're getting a mortgage, the bank wants to know. They must know. Because you might find somebody going for a mortgage for $600,000. When an evaluation is done on the property value is $350,000. And the bank is at risk. The other party at risk is insurance. So it's really important you have a professional approach to this. You may ask, well, why do we really need an inspection? So, as I outlined earlier, the lawyer would have gone to the land registry to search. But the registry will not reveal everything you're looking for. There may be some what we call overriding interests. I'll explain that later. It might be a situation where you're buying this piece of land, you have not examined the land, but somebody has been working that land for a period of time, unknown to you. Alternatively, there's a house on the land, somebody is working the land and sleeping at the house for a certain period, unknown to you, because you have not conducted any searches. You assume it's empty. Again, if you make the mistake and purchase, you'll be purchasing subject to those rights, if they exist. And if you look at Section 28 of the Registered Land Act, in particular, Section 28G, it talks about the rights of persons in actual occupation. Now, you have to be aware of these rights. And this section says, that's 28G of the Registered Land Act. Rights of person in occupation of land or in receipt of rent, except where such inquiry is made of such person and the rights are not disclosed. All right? So, let's understand how this section operates. Somebody is occupying the land unknown to you. And that person is there for 11 years. The owner can still move him out. He has a right, but we have to distinguish a right from an interest. When that person is permitted to occupy that land for 12 years, that right crystallizes into an interest. And once that person has an interest, you who thought you were the owner yesterday basically would have lost that interest over the property. But it's not automatic. I'll show you why. 12 years is the period which the person must occupy. Anything short of 12 years, the person is deemed a trespasser. So he can be moved off. You can give him notice, and you could take it to the court. But even when somebody qualifies and the right crystallizes from the right of occupation to an interest in the land, that person still have to take some steps, because at that stage, he has a shield and a sword. He has to go now to the land registry to make an application. Now, even if he doesn't go and make the application right away, he does not lose the right. But he has to prove that he occupied that land for the requisite period. It's not automatic. And sometimes you hear people saying, for example, they've been occupying for 15 years, and they can't find the evidence to show that they've been occupying for 15 years. For example, if the person claimed that he planted a coconut tree on the land when he came on, you can get expert evidence to show how long a coconut tree takes to grow, or an avocado tree. So these are things you have to keep in the back of your head. All right, so we've gone past that stage of conducting the searches. And the next step is for the attorney to prepare a sales agreement or a contract between the parties, the one who's selling, the one who's buying. Now, at the very basic level, you will know that land cannot be sold or transferred orally. It has to be reduced to writing. So, there's justification for having the contract. And I'll make this point now because what has been happening in recent times is that some real estate agents and other persons tend to think they don't need a sales agreement. And they produce one which is defective. So you have a one-pager, a one-paragraph saying this is a sale agreement. Just saying X and Y agree to purchase this land, it's located here, that's it. And for the most part, they tend to survive. But it's a fundamental error because when an issue arises as it relates to the contract, there are no other terms to support your argument, and you're stuck. So the right way, that's the wrong way. The right way is to have what we call a professionally done sales agreement, which will contain critical terms that you missed, the layman would have missed. For example, not just the block and parcel, not just the size of the land, the area, but critical clauses that deal with forfeiture. How do you lose your deposit? It must be set out. A, the roles and responsibilities of seller and buyer. So that, for example, the buyer has an obligation to pay all the stamp duties, etc. The seller has to produce an Form F and the certificate to the lawyer. And the lawyer holds them. And the contract is for a period. So whereas somebody rush and draw up a contract for a week or 2 weeks, you really have, in practice here in Montserrat, a 90-day period to close. So typically you pay 10% to the real estate agent, and you have 90 days to close. You might need a mortgage. You need time to apply for the mortgage, etc. And you can put provisions in the agreement that says, in the event the mortgage is denied, the contract goes. But if you enter into the contract not stating these critical terms, you did not get the mortgage, but you paid the deposit, and there are no provisions in the sales agreement to determine what happens to the deposit, you lose your deposit. So, I mean, cutting corners is not good for $1,000. So I always say, I'm a lawyer, I'm going to tell you, get a lawyer. You don't have to get me. I'm saying, protect yourself, protect your interests by not taking shortcuts. So you must always get legal advice. If you don't want a lawyer to draft it for you, consult a lawyer. He can say to you, these are critical terms. Make sure they're in. You know, it's really unfortunate. I've known of a couple that came here probably 7 years ago. I came in very late on it. They came here and wanted to buy a property in Isle. They made a deposit with one of those same contracts I'm telling you about, one pager, and they couldn't get the deposit back. They identified defects while they were staying in the house. And they said, let us engage a structural engineer. And when they walk around the house, there were extensive cracks in the floor, in the basement, etc. Couldn't get out the contract because there was no provisions to get out. And they lost their money. I still have to make contact with them. I want to invite them back to Montserrat because they told me they will never come back again. And that hurts me as a Montserratian. But it's just trying to show you the things you have to do. And the real estate agents really have to indicate in strong terms that you must have this sales agreement. Shortcut, not going to work. Now, the other issue while you're preparing the contract is this. You don't know if the person will require a landowning license. These things have to be spelled out. So if the person applies for a landowning license, doesn't succeed, there's a provision in the agreement that says, in the event you fail to get the landowning license, contract is avoided. But if you go in again, blindfolded, not putting these terms, you're at risk. So you complete the sales agreement and you exchange it with the other side. And presumably, the attorney on the other side would look at it, scrutinize it, and if he has issues, make a determination in consultation with the other side. Let's deal with the provision for landowning license. Let's say somebody from America, typically, or Canada, wants to buy a property in Montserrat. They're not Montserratians. Clearly, they require a landowning license to own the land. So we have to collate critical data. The first one is a police character report. Now, we have some obligations here as lawyers. We have to try our best to find out source of funds, know your customer requirements, etc. We have to do it. It's mandatory. So that person obtains a police character report from the state where he lives, he or she lives. And typically you get that in 2 weeks, sometime earlier. But we have to go further. I need to find out where my client's source of funds are coming from. And I will require or request maybe your last banking statement, at least to show that you have the funds. Or if you're getting a loan or mortgage from an institution in America, then we need a record to show the source of funds is coming from the Bank of America. And we keep that on file. And we have to keep it on file for a period. The regulations say 5 years, but I try to keep things forever because I try to digitize them. Papers can get destroyed, but I think if you keep it digital, you can have it forever. Why? Because you just don't know what will happen in 4 years' time. Somebody might come and say there's something, and there's some data you have that you have to share. Now, the person also have to submit a passport bio page. And we have to go a little deeper too. We have to try and find out as much as we can about this prospective purchaser, because we don't know them. So we try our own search, and if you're satisfied, then an application is submitted to the Land Registry and the Ministry of Agriculture. But a sales agreement will be attached to this, along with all the information, the banking information, the bio page, police record, etc. Now, you'd want to look and ask, well, what are these costs? I know personally in the diaspora wondering what these costs. They shouldn't be secret. There's no secret. So typically landholding license fees are 5% of the purchase price of the real property. So you're buying a property of 500,000 US, 5% will be the cost of the license. Then you have government stamp duty, which is typically 2% of the assessed value by Inland Revenue. Now, let me explain the assessed value because it confuses people sometimes. So you buy the house for 500,000 US, and you're assuming that that's the figure the Inland Revenue will use to assess your stamp duty. No. The Inland Revenue can go in and say, look, this house is not really worth 500,000, we think it's 400,000. The resultant effect is that you're still going to pay the 2% on the 500,000 because that's the purchase price. It doesn't matter if it's less. If it's more in the assessment, then you pay 2% of the assessed value, which might be more than 500,000. So that, it confuses a lot of people, but it's not really confusing. It's very straightforward and simple. Now, another thing to consider is this. So you buy a house for 500,000 US, and there's some knives, forks, living room set, refrigerator, etc. in it. Those are contents. The contents typically don't form part of that 2%. But sometimes, I've seen persons who made the mistake to just ignore the contents. So let's say the contents worth 100,000. You're going to pay the stamp duty and the contents cost added to. So you must know the contents is not really part of the real property. So the 5% of the real property exclude contents. The forks, the knives, the chair, the refrigerator, etc. Now, so we talk about the 5% for the landowning license. We spoke about the 2% stamp duty. And we also have a registry fee. Because when you complete the transfer, you pay the stamp duty, you pay for the landowning license, you still have to go to the land registry to register it. So that's 0.75%. And legal fees typically, where you make an application for a landowning license, is 2.5%. And the certificate, the new certificate you get, will be $50 EC. Now let's look at transactions where the person is a Montserrat, or what we call a belonger. There is no requirement for a landowning license because you're a Montserrat or you're a belonger. But the belonger is not automatic. You can't just sit down and say, my grandmother born in Montserrat, and you have to apply for it, the belonger status. And you do that by applying to Deputy Governor's office, or the consulate office. And normal application, setting out the facts. You may require affidavit evidence and birth certificate, etc. Your grandmother, who you're claiming through, get documents to show that they are indeed Montserratians and link your connection with your grandmother or your mother. Because your birth certificate should have some lineage connected to who you're claiming through. So that's one part. So because you're not applying for a landowning license as a Montserratian or a belonger, it's 2% for the stamp duty. There is no landowning license, 2%. Again, remember how you work out the 2%. Don't ever forget it. Most people don't understand it. The 2% is not based on your hypothetical value or the value you're purchasing the property from. It is based on an assessment done by inland revenue experts. And it's what they find. Remember always, if their value is less than what you bought it for, you'll pay the purchase price value. If the assessment is higher than the purchase price, then you pay that higher figure, 2%. I explained to you about the contents again. It's applicable here. So the legal fees are typically 2%. And registry fees, again, 0.75%. Certificate is $50. And I mean to say, when the application goes to the land registry for somebody who requires a landowning license, I must say that this current cabinet, in my time, has approved the licenses quicker than the two previous. I found years ago it took 2 months for an approval, and your client's calling you all the time. What's happening with this thing? You have no control. And you have to wait. I find typically within a month, if there are no discrepancies, if there's something, they want more information, they'll get back to you and say, look, we require more information. I find this we turn around quite quick. It's commendable. So we got that. And Montserratians or persons belonging to Montserrat, they'll apply under Section 2 of the Immigration Act. And that sets out the parameters of persons who can claim as belongers of Montserrat. So you make your application to the Deputy Governor's office, and typically, again, it's efficient, very efficient service. Within a week, sometimes 3-4 days, you get back an answer. The only flaw I find in it, and I must say so hesitatingly, is that the communication goes to the land registry. And they now have to put a system in place where they do a parallel notification. So you notify the applicant simultaneously with the registry, so you know. But people like me, I'm calling to find out. But it'd be easier if you send an email to both parties. Land registry to the lawyer applicant knowing, hey, it's approved, so you can proceed. But you still require the bio page, passport bio page. You need birth certificates. If your parent or who you're claiming to died, you need a death certificate to show. If they are married, you need a marriage certificate to show. And a supporting affidavit setting out the basis on which you say you have a right to claim. I want to move to an area that sometimes create difficult understandings with people. So you're buying property, you have a family. And you need to determine now, how do I hold this title? Do I hold it jointly with my husband, jointly with my son, jointly with some family member? Or do you hold it as tenants in common? I'll explain the differences. So when you have or you hear somebody refer to property being held as joint tenants or in joint tenancy, it might be 2 or more persons. Kindly understand that the 2 or 4 persons do not hold a separate share of that property. All 4 own all of it at the same time. So you have to be very careful when you decide, how do I want to hold this land? Why? It's important. Joint tenancy, the principle of survivorship is what applies. So, 3 of us own the property. 2 died, I get all. It's harsh, but it's what you did. You took the choice. And it's not that it can't be changed, because there is what I call a lacuna in our law, and it needs to be rectified. In England, you serve notice, and it's automatically severed. In Montserrat, no. You have to do more things. So we're talking about co-ownership. So 2 types, joint tenancy, and we have tenants in common. Tenants in common is more popular because it's more logical. So with tenants in common now, 4 of us own this piece of land, or this property, and we have what we call specified shares. So we are 100%. And you decide among yourselves who gets 40%, who gets 20%. When you die, it passes under your will. So let's distinguish the former from the latter. The latter gives you the flexibility you need, because your children, your wife, your children can benefit. It passes through your will. The other side, it cannot pass through your will, because remember I said earlier, you never owned all of it. Collectively, the whole group own it, and therefore you cannot dispose of it. You can only dispose of what you own. So it's very important when you think of owning property, you really crystallize that in your thinking, so you avoid common mistakes. So sometimes people get married, and one of the couples did not understand what the word or the term joint tenancy meant. And they're sick, and they died. 1 person died. So I'm saying, now that person cannot pass the property under their will, even they're dying. But I say there is something that needs to be corrected here to apply the way it's applied in England, so it's more equitable. So you must take advice when it comes to property always. Don't think you're a lawyer. I know many are smarter than us, but still consult a lawyer, because we went to school for this. Put it that way. So think always, and I'm not saying I prefer X or Y. Some situations warrant joint tenancy. Husband and wife together, faithful, can't see themselves leaving one another. Joint tenancy is good, except Satan comes in. So keep him out. So we go. So I think I've covered that. I will yield now to some questions if there are any. I suspect there might be some.
The first question is, shouldn't the land registry thoroughly check the details of a property, example, the block and parcel number, etc., before approving transfer of land and property?
No, they would do that. My reference earlier was to a situation where if the lawyer did not go and check, he'll be doing something wrong, because there'll be no contract. Because the person you said owned the land does not own the land, and therefore no transfer can happen. So the registry staff is very competent, proficient. When you take documents there, as a matter of fact, it has been improved now. So before you name Fitzroy Buffonge, you go there, you transfer. You now have to take your passport to show that you're Fitzroy Buffonge. Why? There might be 5 or 6 Fitzroy Buffonges in Montserrat. And how would you know is this one who transferred it? So they are very proficient and professional. So the reference to checking the registry was relevant to the attorney doing the checks, not the land registry. The attorneys have to do the check themselves. When you present the documents for transfer, then the land registry scrutinizes it to make sure everything ties up.
So the next question is, 1 second. Would you recommend going through a real estate agency to purchase property as the best approach?
I recommend it. And I could only speak for myself. I prefer to get instructions from a real estate agent. But quite often, the purchaser contacts the seller, and they told them I decide they don't need to go to a real estate agent. But my preference is to always have somebody there. Question is whether it's cost effective. Okay, you still have to pay the real estate agent. You have to work it out. But it's safer. It's not that the lawyer is going to make a mistake. But I prefer, especially with large transactions, to have the real estate agent there and work through them. Because, for example, I personally do not keep an escrow account for client funds. So I have an escrow account, but that account is confined to receiving my legal fees, maybe stamp duty costs, maybe landowning license. If I become an agent, then it means money is coming into my account, which I don't want, because I'm very mindful about the requirements and the FATF, and let the real estate agent who does that work handle that part. Keep the escrow funds, go through that agent. It's easier. Of course, if you're buying a piece of land for $15,000, you have to ask yourself whether they make any sense. But those significant sums, you really have to have the protection. Again, I can only speak about myself who do not hold client accounts or manage client accounts. That requires more scrutiny, which I have enough.
So the next question is, how do you purchase a property with your partner if they are not from Montserrat? What are some of the financial and legal implications?
Okay, let me deal with the purchaser, a mixed purchaser first. So somebody marries to a Montserratian abroad, and that person automatically thinks, I'm married to a Montserratian, so therefore I don't need it. No, you're wrong. That person still needs a landowning license to own property. And marrying to the Montserratian is not sufficient. Yeah, there must be some link. You remember how I outlined earlier under Section 2? There must be some link to Montserratian parentage. So if the wife is going, is a Montserratian, don't need a license. But that person who is not a Montserratian or belanger has to apply for and obtain a landowning license to have that coverage.
What if they're purchasing the property together?
Together, still, it applies. It doesn't matter whether it's together or singular. They need because the act is very clear. Person not belonging to Montserrat. And you don't belong to Montserrat because you're married to somebody from Montserrat. The definition is very clear. So you have to work it out and plan and budget for it, because it's real.
So if I want to come to Montserrat and explore property purchasing options, what would be the recommended steps?
The first step is to visit a real estate agent to see those properties that are up for sale. And there's something we have to be mindful about too. If I pick up a house from, I have to be careful how I put it. If I pick up a house from Lookout, heist it up, hypothetically, land it inside Woodlands, the house in Lookout might have valued $400,000. Once you land it and plant it inside Woodlands, it automatically goes to about $700,000. Because there are factors and forces in the area that drive it. For example, there might have been recent property sales in the area. Houses you think ordinarily might be about $500,000. Market forces. Two of them were sold for $750,000. So this one coming in, go get some benefit from that. And that's why you have to have somebody professional doing your reports. Because they do all this analysis to set out. So when the bank sees that, they understand it. You need to know that because your insurance will be affected. And if you undervalue and underinsure, there are consequences when the storm comes. You see? So it's strategic, but you have to think about it.
If the registry and AG Chambers checks this land and property information and approves, why then can someone then claim interest in the property and the new homeowner can basically end up in a legal battle for a property?
They must not use edgy chambers or registry. They must understand how the thing goes. So you have somebody basically squatting on this land. You, as the purchaser, do not know. You might not even live here. You say, look, I'm interested in this land. Did no searches, they didn't check the boundaries. And they might be in agriculture to the low side going on for 10, 15 years. That person who's doing agricultural work there doesn't have to sleep there. He's occupying it. And the section is talking about uninterrupted occupation. So once that person stays there for the period as mandated by law, 12 years, and that person is what you call now have a new interest, a new right, which is protected by law. But if that person spends 11 years, 11 months, it doesn't matter. Until you get to 12 years, you can move him off. He's a trespasser for all intents and purposes until that right is crystallized. Once it's crystallized, you who thought you owned the land before have a problem. Because the person is now going to go to the registry, take evidence. Not that he's going to be proved right. He has to prove that he occupied for the period. No point going and maybe telling a lie. He has to prove it and satisfy the registrar. Listen, the 12-year period has been satisfied. It may require affidavit evidence from people who know the area, who are aware that he's been working the land. On the other side, there might be persons who operate and give evidence for the other side to show, no, this person only came here 8 years ago. So it's for the registrar now, looking at all the evidence, determine the balance. But it's the risk of leaving your property in Montserrat unattended. I submit that every person who is abroad, who have property in Montserrat, need to ensure that somebody, you issue a power of attorney to somebody in Montserrat who periodically checks. 12 years is a long time. But if you have nobody, we have here for 29 years. See what I'm saying? So you really have to have somebody checking on again, driving through, examining, see if there's anybody occupying.
Final question. What are the responsibilities of property owners in Montserrat?
The responsibilities are very wide, but some of them is what I said to you. That when you leave Montserrat, issue a power of attorney, and you can have that agent pay your taxes, your property taxes, ensure the maintenance of your property. We've got properties here locked up for 20 years. They were quite good. And they're locked up for 20 years, they're all rotten. And maybe sometimes the government should think of a scheme where there's some arrangement, in my view, where the government gives a grant to repair the house, upkeep the house, and rent the house on behalf of the client abroad. So the house does not deteriorate. 2, you're collecting income. 3, you're helping somebody housing. So these are things and ideas I think the government should be amenable to, because it makes sense. You're going to Frit. We are creating a new ghetto in Montserrat. Government need to go and spend some money, rehabilitate all those properties, people who rent them, and collect the rent and collect a portion of it, and send the remainder to the people who own the property with contract. Yep.
Okay, do we have any questions from persons on the floor?
I have a question in terms of the joint tenancy and the tenancy in common. If you can just go over, I think you mentioned it, but I was a little unclear in terms of if you have joint tenancy, can you change it and transfer it to a tenancy in common, and what is the process?
All right. As I said earlier, and it's something I'm going to take up with the Honorable Attorney General. I worked there before, so I have a good idea how to deal with things. In England, you got 2 joint tenants. For some reason, they fell out. All this other tenant had to do is serve a notice and prove that it's served, and it's severed right away. In Montserrat, it doesn't work like that. And the Court of Appeal have dealt with it. And there's a lacuna and all that, and he's fixing, because it could create prejudice. Why can't somebody change their mind? Okay, you have a son. Son was nice, went to university, had a giant tenancy property with him. Then he comes and tries to kill me. What should I do? still keep him as joint tenant? No, I should sever and give him what I think I should give him, even 50%. So our provision, our law, it speaks of it, but it doesn't operate like that, because the Court of Appeal is very clear. There's a lacuna in our law, it needs to be fixed, because it's going to cause problems with families. And that's why I say, if somebody is coming to you to do a will, you need to see the title deed. Because somebody will come and say, I have it in tenants in common. And if you don't see it, you draft the will thinking it's tenants in common. And then you realize it's joint tenancy, and it can't pass under the will. So these are things we have to be mindful about. But like I said, solid, sound, good, God-fearing families can go the joint tenancy route. If you don't have the confidence, go tenants in common to be safe. It's easy to change it later. It can be reversed under our system. So it's a danger there, and we have to look at it. We're passing all kind of legislation. This is one we have to pass. So I hope the officials are listening. It makes sense.
So I have a question from online. What about matrimonial rights? The seller may have a partner that is entitled to occupy the property.
Well, you have to be careful when you look at English legislation with our legislation. In England, they have specific statutes that deal with those things. In Montserrat, it doesn't work like that. So, you know, a few years ago, somebody was telling me that they were advised that when two persons live together, after 7 years, that this person have an automatic right to the boyfriend's property. And I said, no. And I went out to research it. And there was talk about it in the 70s in England to be passed on. It was never done. And therefore, be careful. Don't think because you cohabitate with somebody for a required period, you automatically grant. It doesn't work that way. All right? The law sets out how somebody can own an interest. For example, somebody who pays mortgage jointly with somebody, pays utility bills and other outgoings, may have a claim under a different branch. It might be proprietary estoppel. But the specific question cannot be answered in the affirmative because it doesn't work that way and there's no provision in our law to allow that. So people have to be careful. So a girlfriend thinking that all I have to do is live for 7 years with the person, it's wrong. You better put some money in the property in order to get your interest. So if there are no more questions, I'm very pleased. I'm happy I was able to come. I hope I edified persons who are observing. But all my was welcome. And I could share this with anybody who wants it. It doesn't matter. Anybody who wants it can get it. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you to Mr. Fitzroy Buffonge, our final in-person presenter for today. And, you know, lots of useful tips and advice about purchasing property here on Montserrat. We also have a Montserratian living in the US who has purchased a property on Montserrat and is going to share her experience via video. So at this point, we're going to hear from Miss Iris Lake Ryan, a homeowner on Montserrat who resides in the USA.
Hi everyone, my name is Iris Lake Ryan. I'm a registered nurse. I'm originally from Trials. I currently work for the Mount Sinai Health System in New York. I'm a very proud homeowner here on Montserrat. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about home ownership on Montserrat. It can be looked upon in two parts. From my view, it can be viewed in two ways. First, ownership. Second is practicality and convenience. And those two kind of tie into each other. And let's talk about ownership. Ownership is the feeling of having a piece of the rock. You own a piece of the rock. This is your spot. Second is practicality. And I'm going to give you an example. St. Patrick's here in Montserrat is a very busy period, and everyone, sometimes 5,000, 6,000 people are trying to get on island at the same time. And the challenge here is trying to find accommodation. What's the first thing anybody think about? Where am I going to stay? So the first challenge is finding accommodation. There are limited amounts of rentals, Airbnbs, and there's a hotel. So the question is, Am I going to be able to find accommodation? Can I stay with family? What am I going to do? Is it worth it? And that's where that challenge comes in, and that's the positive part of home ownership, or one of the positive parts of home ownership. Because the first thing you think of, okay, I got to get a ticket, I got to get to Montserrat, I got to find out where I'm going to stay. Here, once you own a home, you don't have to worry about that. You're leaving the bustle, the hustle, the noise, the stress, the people, all of that stuff behind, and you're coming to complete rest and relaxation. And once you have gotten here, once you arrive here, you forget, trust me, you forget about everything else. The actual process of owning a home here is twofold. You're first going to have to figure out what is it that you want. What kind of home do you want? I wish in retrospect that there was a site that one could go to, a central area where you can see all the homes that are available for purchase and you can pick one. They do exist online, but you have to toggle between several sites. So that's the downside of that. However, having decided that you want to purchase a home, your next step is going to be financing. How am I going to finance this home? How much of the cost do I want to finance? And where am I going to go to get the financing for this home? So in my personal experience, and this is just our experience, we tried one institution and it was difficult getting to the loans manager there, the loans personnel. That proved to be a struggle. We tried several times and that was a failure. And on the advice of someone, a friend of mine, we tried a second institution, which was a complete 360 on the initial one. They were welcoming, helpful, provided the right information. The manager at the time was very happy to see Montserratians reinvesting in Montserrat. So she was very astute at providing all the information that we needed. When we left that meeting, we were clear on what we needed to do and where we were going. So once we had that down, we knew exactly where to go from there. And the only problem that I would say, or one of the problems that we encountered, and that was the major one because the rest were minute, but I would say it was that it became a bit confusing at one stage, trying to figure out where the realtor's role ended and where the legal representative's role began. And that could create a problem because you ended up doing something twice, doing something too early, or not doing something early enough. And that kind of was a challenge. That challenged the process, and it was a bit time consuming. Having said that, once the process started, once you started doing everything that needed to be done to own this home, then you started feeling the rewards. And it has been a win-win situation because you come here, you relax. Here is a place that we come to, and I think of it almost like it's medication without drugs. Now we have the next generation coming that we're trying to encourage the interest in Montserrat as well. Both of my children were born in America. Now I'm trying to integrate them into my culture, my heritage, my Montserrat. This is what we're trying to do, and you're seeing it now because many people are now bringing back their children, their grandchildren, who are willing and wanting, craving to come back a second time and a third time, some of them multiple times. And this is what we're striving for. This is what we want. So this home now has become something that's going to be passed down into the generation. The interest will still be there for my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. And this is why I would love to encourage people, all my Montserratians, all the people who have interest in earning or owning property here on Montserrat, to purchase property here on Montserrat. Do not let anything stop you. I've spoken to people have asked me questions since we purchased, and they have subsequently come in and purchase property. And this is what we want. Montserrat is in our DNA. Montserrat is where we want to be. Montserrat is where we want to come back to. Montserrat is where we want to relax. And as Ron the Don, the late Ron the Don Bass stated, we're showcasing Montserrat to the world. So I would love to open or see this avenue being open to many more Montserratians. I'd love to see many more Montserratians owning property here, showing interest in owning property here. And I will tell you this, if you love Montserrat as much as I love Montserrat, if Montserrat is in your DNA as much as it is in mine, I encourage you to come buy a home on Montserrat, own a home on Montserrat, reach out and grasp your little piece of the rock. And that would be my advice to anyone listening to this symposium today. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Iris Lake Ryan, homeowner here on Montserrat, for sharing her experience. And, she would have captured the challenges, and that is areas for us to improve, and lessons learned, which, of course, those of you interested in buying property from overseas, you can take those lessons and avoid making the same mistakes if you do decide to purchase property in Montserrat. All in all, very good presentations all around at the symposium. Lots of very useful information, and I really hope that the listeners and viewers found this information helpful. Many of you have been asking about contact details for more information, and we will post that in the chat. In fact, we have been posting that. We will post it at the end of this video as well, all the contact details related to the different organizations that would have presented here today, and also for the Montserrat Tourism Authority. So if you do have further queries or questions about anything covered here today at the Montserrat Diaspora Symposium, please contact the Montserrat Tourism Authority. They can channel your queries accordingly. And you can send an email to info, that's INFO, at montserrattourism.ms. Or if you want to call 491-4703 or 491-4702, the area code is 664. Just to very quickly recognize the presenters. For those of you who might have joined us late, we had Mr. Hannes de Bruin, project manager of the hospital project, providing a health update related to the hospital project. We had Kathyan Fenton, Mrs. Kathyan Fenton, general manager acting of the Bank of Montserrat Limited, of course, providing information about banking and how to navigate banking at the Bank of Montserrat if you are living overseas. We had Mr. Fitzroy Buffonge, barrister at law, Buffonge and Associates, presenting on real estate process for purchasing property, providing you with not just the processes, but also legal guidance on how you should navigate purchasing property in Montserrat. We had experiences shared by Iris Lake Ryan and also Rodelphia Weeks, who are Montserratians living overseas who would have invested in this way here in Montserrat. Let me also use the opportunity to promote the Discover Montserrat magazine, which was developed alongside the Montserrat Tourism Authority, and it was developed by Discover Montserrat. There is a section in that magazine that speaks to your guide to home ownership, and you may find that information very useful. You can go back to the presentation here online as well and look back and navigate all of that. Again, thank you so much for coming out. At this point, I'll call on Ms. Shanae Taylor-Lee of the tourism. She's a tourism officer at the Montserrat Tourism Authority. She will deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. As we bring this enlightening and engaging symposium to a close, it is my privilege to extend our deepest gratitude to all who have made this event possible. Firstly, I would like to thank Sister Ruth Allen for invoking God's presence over this event. And I would like to express our sincere thanks to Mrs. Fiona Alexander Smith for expertly chairing and moderating today's proceedings. Your guidance ensured the smooth flow of our program. A heartfelt thank you to Mrs. Rosetta Westgerald, Director of the Montserrat Tourism Authority, for her welcome remarks, and to our Honorable Premier, Mr. Joseph Taylor Farrell, for his insightful brief remarks which set the tone for today's discussion. Our gratitude goes out to Mr. Hannes de Bruin for providing an essential update on the hospital project, and to Ms. Rodelphia Weeks for sharing her inspiring experience as a homeowner and business owner. We extend our thanks to Mrs. Kathyan Lee-Fenton from the Bank of Montserrat for her informative presentation on banking. In the realm of real estate, we appreciate Mr. Fitzroy Buffonge of Buffonge and Associates for explaining the process of purchasing property, and Ms. Iris Lake for sharing her valuable homeowner experience. A special thank you to Ms. Vania Bass, the marketing assistant for this event, as well as the Government Information Unit, GIU, for covering this event and technical support. A special mention to the Decor Lab for their beautiful decorations, and to Dip and Althea's Kitchen for catering the delightful light refreshments we will all enjoy. To all our esteemed panelists and speakers, your contribution has been invaluable and have provided us with so much to reflect upon. Last but not least, a big thank you to everyone who attended both in person and virtually. Your engagement and participation is what made this event truly special. Thank you.